Another scenario we run across frequently with manufacturing is that our customer outsources a piece or several pieces of the assembly process. As an example, we have a customer who builds cleaners that are used on big shipping vessels. They have some assembly that happens in their warehouse, then they send out some pieces for painting and polishing. So I'm going to go ahead and set up this assembly process. So we have the cleaner before it goes for painting. This is going to be its own assembly item, and I'm going to call it Cleaner Unpainted. So we go to List and Items List, create a new item, an assembly item, and call it Cleaner Unpainted. Okay, and I'm going to put in here the description and the sales price of $150 and the revenue account because it's required. And then I'm going to do a full view on the item here. So the Cleaner Unpainted includes an engine, just one, 2 caps, a bucket, and a frame. Okay. And I'm going to make this build hit my asset account that I'm going to create called Whip Assembly. And you can't see it here again because it's zoomed in. So let me switch my view so we can see it here. So we're going to call it Whip Assembly. Okay. And it hasn't been set up yet, but I'm going to set it up as an other current asset, and it's going to go as a sub under my inventory assets. And we'll go through the movement in just a little bit. So this is going to hit Whip Assembly, and then we're going to say, okay. Next, I'm going to create another item for the painted cleaner. So this is going to use the cleaner unpainted and also add a service of paint. So let's create this item. So it's going to be a new item, again, an inventory assembly part, and we're going to call it Painted Cleaner. And copy the description and put in a sales price. Sales price doesn't matter because I never sell painted cleaners, but I'll put in a sales price, put in the revenue accounts here, and if I do a full view, I'm going to add the cleaner unpainted, right, and use one of them, and then I'm also going to add paint. Okay, now I don't have paint set up yet, but paint is going to be a service item. I don't ever sell paint, so I'm not going to make it, but I still need to make it a double-sided item because I want the cost to hit a certain account. So I'm going to choose, the cost is going to be $1, right? So that we can choose the quantity and affect based on the quantity how much cost is built into it. The expense account that I'm going to use is going to be outside service whip. Again, you don't have to use all these different whip accounts. I'm just showing it to you as an example. So it's going to be under other current asset and under the inventory asset area. Okay, so $1. Again, I'm never going to sell it, but you do have to put, it forces you to put a revenue account in, and then I want to put the description in. So I want to build $25. You know, I have a contract with my painter that every time they paint one of my cleaners, it's $25. And so I put in a quantity of 25 into my bill of materials. And then okay. And I'm going to choose the asset account again, assembly whip or whip assembly. Okay. Next, because the polishing company is a different vendor than the painting company, I'm going to create another assembly item called Polished Cleaner. So create a new inventory assembly item, Polished Cleaner. Okay, the Polished Cleaner, and choose a revenue account. You always have to choose a revenue account. The Polished Cleaner is going to include the painted cleaner, okay, because we polish afterwards. And then it's also going to include a service of polish. So I'm going to add a new service item. Again, make it double-sided. Choose the account that it's going to go against is going to be the outside service whip. Make it $1. Again, revenues, it doesn't matter. Okay. Oops, I forgot to put in the description. I always like to put in the description. And the cost that we're going to associate is going to be by adding a quantity of 45. So again, we have a contract with the polishing company that they're going to charge us $45 per one cleaner that they polish. And the inventory asset account will be WIP assembly. So finally, once the items are returned to us from the polisher, we then put it in a box with some cleaning solution. So my finished build, or my final build, will be finished cleaner, so an inventory assembly part called finished cleaner. Okay. The sales price on this one is, this is what I actually sell, so I'm going to just put in a big sales price because I don't know how much the costs actually add up to. Put in the income account of revenue, and then here I'm going to add in the polished cleaner, quantity of 1, and I'm going to add a box, and I'm going to add a cleaning solution. Okay, and the inventory asset account here is, it's going to point to finished goods, and then say OK. All right, I'm going to flip the view back because I just like my type icon bar so much better. So I'm going to go ahead and build this assembly. So I'm going to go into Build Assemblies. I'm going to build the finished cleaner here, and I'm going to build a quantity of 5, and I'm going to choose to automatically build the required sub-assemblies. Now, of course, I don't have any of the polished cleaners on hand, so it's going to put it into a pending status. So when I say build a new, right, so now I have in here a pending finished cleaner, a pending polished cleaner, a pending painted cleaner, and the cleaner unpainted, which is also pending. And I just turned on the inventory sites also, so we can look at how we can move these across the different inventory sites, so we make sure to know where our inventory is at any given time. So our first one, our cleaner unpainted, right, we build in our own warehouse. So it's going to be in my warehouse, and all of the individual items are going to be pulled from my warehouse as well. I can build 250 of them for the purpose of what I wanted to build, right, the 5 finished goods. I only need 5 here. I can edit this if I wanted to and build more, but I'm just going to build the 5 and say build in new. Now, when I go back into, I'm sorry, I didn't remove the pending status when I did that. Cleaner unpainted, build a new. Yes. Now, when I go back into this cleaner unpainted, I want to look at what it happened, right? So let's look at our transaction journal. And what it did was it removed these engines from, my quantity on hand of these engines, the caps, the buckets, and the frames, moved all of them out of the inventory asset account that I had them to, and probably I would not have them just straight inventory asset. I'd have them in something like components asset or something like that in the future. And then it moved it into the WIP assembly for my cleaner unpainted. Okay, so now if I look at my quantity on hand of cleaner unpainted, right, I have 5 on hand. Now, to use the multiple warehouses with this, the next step that I would do is I would go in and transfer my inventory, right? So I'd transfer from my warehouse, and then I'd create one called Painter Warehouse as an example. Okay, and then I would move my cleaner unpainted. I have 5 in my warehouse. I'm going to transfer those 5 to the Painter Warehouse. So this maintains the value on my books, but I'm keeping track of, where are all my cleaner unpainteds? Oh, I already sent them to the Painter Warehouse. Now I'm going to move to the next step here of the painted cleaner. Okay, so this includes the cleaner unpainted, 5 of them, and then it also includes some service for paint. Now, before I go in and build these, let's say I'm going to get a bill from my vendor. So I'm going to enter a bill, again, from Joe's Paint Shop. I'm going to choose the item paint, okay, and whatever the cost is that they charge me. So they charged me 25, they charged me for 5 times 25. Oops, I'm sorry, quantity 5 times 25. Now on this bill, when I hit save, again, when we take a look at our transaction journal, let's see what happens. So it hits accounts payable, right? Credits accounts payable, and it debits our outside service WIP. So our asset account goes up for this $125 of paint that we purchased from the paint shop. Now back in the build assembly, I have enough cleaner unpainted, right, to make the 5, so quantity 5. I'm going to pull it from the painter warehouse, right, because I transferred them to the painter warehouse. Now I'm going to pull it back from the painter warehouse when I finish this assembly. And the assembly site where the finished goods, the painted cleaners, are going to go is going to be my warehouse again. Okay. And here you can see here, because I have quantity of 25, right, and we set up the cost of $1, then when I actually build this item or mark it final, we'll look at what it does with that paint service behind the scenes. But I do have the opportunity here. So let's say the painter said, hey, you know, this was a really big job, or it's whatever, it cost us $35. You do have the opportunity to edit this before you save it, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the pending status, say build anew, and then go back again to the painted cleaner, which is now finalized, and look at our transaction journal. Okay. So behind the scenes, what happened was it moved that $316.25 that we had built into the cleaner unpainted out of cleaner unpainted WIP assembly. It also removed $125 out of outside service WIP and built the entire cost into the painted cleaner, again, which is in a WIP assembly because it still is a step in before we get to the finished good. Okay. So if I go look at my outside services WIP and my chart of accounts, it has a dollar value of 0 because I have the bill that went in for $125 and then it got pulled out as it got built into the painted assembly. Now I'm going to go back to my build assemblies here and go to my polished cleaner, which is my next step. Now I need to transfer my inventory, right? So I'm going to be transferring from my warehouse to the polished warehouse, polisher warehouse. Okay, and I'm going to transfer my painted cleaner, right? So I have 5 back in my warehouse now that they're completed from the painter. I'm going to transfer those 5 painted cleaners to the polisher warehouse. Again, I do all these things because it could be several days or months or, I don't know. So it just helps keep track of the inventory for us. It's a lot of extra steps. You don't necessarily have to do all those transfers, but again, it helps us to maintain and keep track of the inventory. So on the polished cleaner, I have my painted cleaners now, and I'm going to, when I finish this, I'm going to be pulling it from the polisher warehouse. And then I have my actual polish service, which we have at $45 each. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the bill, right, to Rob's Polisher. And the item's going to be polish and a quantity of 5, and the cost is $45 each. Okay. Now, when I come in here and mark this as final, so I don't need to build my sub-assemblies, right, on these guys. So I'm going to say build and, or remove pending status and build anew. Oops, I forgot to put the inventory site up top. So when I build them, when I finalize it, it means the polisher sent them back to my warehouse. So the final is going to be the my warehouse assembly. So I say build anew. Now when I look at my polished cleaner here, right, I'm going to go in and look at the transaction journal. And again, what it does is it moves $225 from the outside services WIP. So it moves it out of outside services. It also moves the $441.25 out of the painted cleaners, and it puts it into the polished cleaners WIP with a value of $666.25. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the last step, which is our finished cleaner, which again is happening in my warehouse. So I can just say my warehouse, and it's pulling from my warehouse. So we have the polished cleaner, and we now have 5 of those on hand, right? Because we just got them back from the polisher. And then we're going to add a box and some cleaning solution. And then I can say build and close. or I'm sorry, remove pending status, build a new. Take a look at that finished cleaner and the transaction journal. So again, here it's removing it from WIP assembly, now that's 666.25, adding in the additional component costs for the box and the cleaning solution, and then it is debiting our finished good asset account. So now the finished cleaner, when I sell it, is going to have that value. That's 743.75 for 5, so it's going to be 743.75 divided by 5. So now when I go and create an invoice for this item, and sell it to myself, and I add in the finished cleaner, right, and I'm going to be pulling it from my warehouse because that's where they are now, quantity of 1, and save, then again, behind the scenes, what happens is accounts receivable goes up, right? Accounts receivable goes up by $2,500, sales revenue goes up by $2,500, and then it costs out from finished good the $148.75 for the quantity of 1, and hits cost of goods sold for the quantity of 1 of $148.75. Okay, so everything flows through. So this is how, or an example of how, to manufacture with outsourcing steps. I know there are a lot of steps to this process, but if customers have a complicated process where they're sending inventory here and receiving it there from other vendors, this is really helpful for them to keep track of where their inventory is, which stage in the process their inventory is at, and also make sure that their costs are maintained and flowing appropriately.